My friend's dad came too. He used to come to the movies with a lot. He was a cool guy, big tear, and
That's his name?
we it's Terry. Call him Big Tear, Big T. Shout out Big T. So
I finally
Watched.
I finally
Watched. I
finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
I finally
Watched.
hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and I finally watched Zero Dark 30.
So I saw Zero Dark 30 when it came out in theaters. I have a story to tell about the ending of the movie when we get to that part. Um,
You
but
were there?
I'm actually the shooter. No, but just the story of my movie going experience. But I'm gonna save it till it's only relevant to the end of the movie. So I really liked this. I've watched it several times since, and I think what I kind of compared this a little bit to you to Spotlight earlier. Obviously, like that's a newspaper movie. This is like a spy. It's a spy movie thriller up until the end, and then it's obviously it has this tinge of reality into the story of how we killed Osama bin Laden. And but it's just like it's like very procedurally interesting, and there's so many like different parts of it that are like this should be kind of boring, but it's not. And I think, like a lot of spy movies, you either have to like them or not, right? You either can find them boring or
Right.
you can find them interesting. But this is just done in such a way. Catherine Bigelow is such an amazing director. It's so well written that it just all of it works. So, what did you think?
No, I agree with you. I don't agree on the fact that you either like all spy movies or you don't, because there are definitely I feel like I like the majority of them, but there are definitely some that I feel are draining, are boring in the way that they are written. And then you have ones that I can't even call them spy movies. Like James Bond is a spy movie, but it is way more of an action thriller than it is like a slow burn spy movie,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, well, the Daniel Craig for sure is basically. I mean, first they went from kind of campy in the '60s, and then stayed that way through Pierce Brosnan, right? And then with differing degrees of success. And then the Craig ones are supposed to be more grounded in reality, but they honestly like they're so like similar to like Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah.
I always compare
Yeah, that's true.
The Bournes, the Mission Impossibles, and the Craigs are always like so
The
similar to me, like
Craigs.
those 3.
No,
Yeah,
I
well,
don't agree with you. I think Bourne is more slow burn spy than both of those, than the Mission Impossibles, than the James Bonds, the newer ones.
I
I
mean,
think
it's a spectrum, right? Because then on the Bournes on one end, and then the John Wicks on the very other end, which
well, then
don't
it's
care
not
about.
even a spy. It's not even it's
You
a
know what
like a
I'm saying? Just
hitman.
a badass guy on his own, right? It's
Okay,
similar to like
okay.
a
That genre
western.
of
Yeah,
film?
I mean, I think those all are like kind of interconnected to me as far as like when I'm in the mood for one. It's like, all right, am I going to watch the Mission Impossibles or the Bournes or whatever?
So, have you ever seen the movie Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy?
I have. And I that was one where I had like heard that it's like can be boring for people. And I
I told
don't.
you that.
Okay, so it was you. It was you. And I think I actually enjoyed it, but I don't remember it all that well. Like I'd have to watch it again, and that is definitely like it's for sure a slow movie.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got so bored at that movie, like unbelievably bored. I was quite a bit younger too when I first saw it, so maybe I just didn't have the attention span or the patience to kind of really understand it. But I hated it so much that it made me not want to watch A Bridge of Spies when that came out. But
Those
I
are
actually heard because
those
it
are
had
not
spy,
connected.
because I know, but it had spy in the name. Anyways, um but then I heard that was very good, and I should probably
Did it make you
see
rethink The
that.
Spy Who Shagged Me?
No, though, like, now that I think about it, like, Man from Uncle is a spy movie, but it's also a very entertaining spy movie. It's, like, not boring at all.
I love that
Um,
movie.
I know you do. But I need to rewatch it because it has been a second. I just remember, like, I remember Army Hammer and Henry Cavill, which it's so funny because I feel like those 2 guys against each other is just, like, just powerhouses against each other. And
Right.
then, I remember the scene with it's like a wall and the car, and they try to get over the car with the but that's it. That's all I remember. So I really need to rewatch it.
I don't even
I
think you've watched it. I think we can do it.
No. Yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you? But the thing is too, is I actually heard that they're thinking about making a second one,
With who?
bringing Cavill back.
I know, but okay, so just Cavill?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about the Hammer Man.
If Vikander's in it and Debicki is in it again, then I'm also very in. I like it does, I mean, obviously what Army Hammer did, it sucks in general, but it does like I don't think Man from Uncle 2 was ever gonna happen anyway because it wasn't that successful, but now it's like for sure. At least not as
Well,
like originally constituted.
I I don't have a problem with cancel culture. If you do something bad,
Oh my
goodbye, I
gosh.
guess. But the thing is just the amount, like, the ridiculousness of what these guys do when they're so, like, on the brink of, like Tom Cruise level of successful, and then they fuck it up. I'm just like, why would you? Like, why would you even do anything to compromise that? But,
Just because they think they're untouchable,
I know.
But
Well,
we're way, way, way afield of
so let's
this.
bring it back. Let's bring it back to this movie, Zero Dark 30. Now, I think I, like, did a small interrogation, not not to the level of these people, but I did a small interrogation to you about, like, how am I going to enjoy this movie, because I was worried for a second. Is Am I going to be bored? Am I going to be just, like, being like, "Oh my god, get to the end where they shoot the guy, like, where's the action in the middle?" And from the get-go, from the opening scene, that interrogation scene, that torture scene is like, it makes your stomach turn. It's like and I know that it's probably supposed to make you feel this way, but it just does not make you feel good. And I heard, this is just what I read, is that it was actually, in a lot of the other torture scenes, were actually a lot worse. And some guy from, like, National Security Advisor, who was hired for the film, had to tell, in, like, the final cut, Catherine Bigelow to, like, tone it down. It makes us look bad.
Yeah, I think the CIA were like, yeah, you need to cut a lot of that shit out because they did get nothing classified, but they did like talk with the CIA a lot about this, and there is some controversy. I guess let's just do it now, like get it out of the way. Uh, One thing before the torture scene, the opening where it's just the recording phone calls from 9/11,
Ugh, yeah.
like really like still like really powerful, even like even to this day, obviously, because I
You
think
say that, but I read a review from, Ebert, who said that while he enjoyed the rest of this movie, the first, like, 10 minutes of this movie is complete trash to him.
okay, good
And
for
I was
you.
like, well, I found that weird, right? Like, why? And he's just like, "It's not really filmmaking." And I guess because there's no visuals on the screen, but I
It's
don't
not
know.
10 minutes, it was like 30 seconds.
It felt like 10 minutes. It was
Yeah.
horrible. Oh my god, hearing that. And
Well,
I
it's
think those were real, right?
yeah, 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 for sure. I mean, I think they had to be. So, we get to the Amar torture scene. When this came out, there was a lot of controversy. There's, like, kind of been 2 waves of controversy with this movie, which is funny because it was nominated for Oscars. It's got, like, a 95 Metacritic score, so it's, like, still
People love this movie.
well liked. But, there were several people, one of them being Martin Sheen, and then a couple other guys, Ed Asner, I think, was one of them, and then another actor who's, like, a little less famous, but came out and just said that this well, so I remember this happening at the time. So the quote I read now is that it tolerates torture. But I remember at the time they were saying that this movie promoted torture. And I read some articles too that were like, yeah, this movie is kind of saying that torture worked. And I was like, that's
That's
not what the
so
movie
that's not what the movie is.
Now, what I think the movie does is, and this is a like a constant thing, especially nowadays, like argument over movies, where if your main character believes something or is something, then the movie is like promoting that or
Sure,
condoning that.
sure,
Like the three billboards with Sam Rockwell, right? But
right.
in this movie, Jason Clark's character and Jessica Chastain's character believe torture works, and the CIA, who was working on the
Right.
movie, argued for years that these enhanced interrogation tactics worked. And so to depict it as if they don't believe that, it's like this isn't a fucking after school special. Like these are the people that did this. They are
You tell him, David.
multifaceted. No, I'm just
Mhm.
saying like this is like what they thought. And so but the movie then goes like to great lengths without throwing it in your face that it's like, the torture of Amar, they didn't get anything until they tricked him and were nice to him. And like, that scene where they're feeding him like, oh, you already gave us this, you should give us more, and then he gives us more, and then they never show torture working for the rest of the movie. They
Yeah,
get Faraj, right, who is like one of the main guys. I'm
right.
sorry, I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but get out of the paint, let me go. But
Uh-huh.
they get Faraj and they're hitting him, and she's like, this isn't a normal prison, we will fuck you up. And then later on she says, well, the only she he didn't give up Abu Ahmed, and that tells us it's important because the only other thing he lied about was like the location of Osama bin Laden. And so you could say that's the movie promoting that it works, but it's saying that he was truthful about, the torture didn't work to get the things that they wanted. The movie I don't think ever shows torture actually working.
So you could argue that if those people were not tortured beforehand, like they didn't get any of the information out directly from anyone through torture, but you could argue that after the fact, since they were tortured before, the threat of more torture and the promise of if they told the truth and divulged the information, then they could avoid farther torture,
Well,
right?
you have the one financier guy who's like, I've been tortured before. I'm gonna just ask your questions. Like, I'm not gonna even take a chance of getting tortured again. Which
The
is
guy
like,
the guy who wanted to, like, stay in Pakistan and not being transferred to the other
yeah, they
one,
were gonna
right?
transfer
But
to Israel.
then that's a threat, right? Like, threats work, but torture doesn't. So it's
Well,
like
so the other thing is there was a movie that, I mean, there's a movie, but there's a movie came out called The Report, starring Adam Driver, and that's based off of a Senate report that's called the Redacted Report. It's the torture report, and basically the Senate and the investigation team that went through all of the CIA's like torturing and other investigation and how they got Osama bin Laden, and basically saying that none of the torture that was used led to any intelligence that helped get Osama bin Laden.
now
And
I w right, I see that, and where I will agree with you is that the whole time that, like, every torture scene, I am just thinking to myself, "I would lie." I would just lie. Just so it could stop the waterboarding and the putting it in a box and the loud music, not sleeping for all those hours. Why don't at that point just lie? And that is the ultimate downfall of why torture doesn't work, right? Is that
well, that's, yeah,
people
that's like
just
what the
lie.
report goes into. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're gonna tell you whatever to get it to stop, and it's not necessarily gonna be true. And I think, I think if you didn't depict, I don't even know how you do this movie without the torture in it, without showing it, because it is so much a part of the story, right? And so it
Well,
has to be in there. But I think, once again, I just think the movie does a good job of of never showing it work.
not outright. Yes, I agree. Uh we're just gonna keep on the torture bit just a little longer because this movie does something that I really enjoyed, and I wish it kind of did it more over time and subtly kind of like build to it. But it did it, so I'm just gonna take the wins where they are. And so what I'm talking about is in the beginning where Jessica Chastain's character Maya was so uncomfortable with the torture. She sat in the back of the room, her hands crossed, kind of hiding in the shadows. And this movie kind of like shows her progression of how comfortable she gets towards the end of it.
Mhm.
Like she's just standing over the guy. There's this one scene where they're torturing him and she's just standing over the guy and she's like, "Oh, it's with the monkeys, where they're in that Afghanistan thing." And like right before she goes out and you find out that they killed all of the his monkeys, which is like sad as shit, dude. But um the the thing where she was like, "So we're gonna torture him, right?" And he's like, "No, I'm not gonna do this anymore. Like, I'm gonna go to Washington D.C. and and see how that operates." And she's like, "Well, I'm gonna stay here." And basically now she's like super comfortable with it and she's in on it. And I like that character progression. It's not a great, I mean, it's not like a positive character progression, but it shows her growth, and I really enjoy that.
Growth, deterioration, whatever. Yeah, I mean, because so let's just get to the beginning. So it opens with the torture of Amar. Jason Clark is so like magnetic in this, and it's. I guess if you were gonna point to the promoting of torture, it's like how charismatic this guy is, and how like fucking like just good he is in these scenes of something like kind of so deplorable that like you don't want to watch, right? And, like, just when he talks about he's like, "Don't worry, it's not always this intense," but, he's gotta learn he's helpless. Um, it then throws Jessica Chastain right into this, right? Because at first she's, like, completely covered up, and then they go outside and she takes it all off, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna wanna put that mask back on." She's like, "You're not wearing it. Like, is he ever gonna get out?" Jason Clarke's just like, "No, fucking never. Like, we're never letting this guy out." Um But then, like, as they're about to waterboard this guy, they're like, "Hey, get that bucket. All right, fill it with water." And now it's like you're in this. You're not just watching, you are participating in this. You are getting them the water they need to do this. So it's like she's immediately thrown into the fire of like this thing. And it's like she has to make the decision if she can do it. And later on, when she meets Kyle Chandler's character and he's like, she's a killer, which like the timeline of how quickly she was sent over here doesn't exactly make sense when she's like, this is all I've ever done. But I guess maybe she was working on Osama bin Laden like in the US before she went to Pakistan. But
Well, she said 12 years. She said she was recruited out of high school. And you have to assume that they put her through college. So let's say she's 18, 22. So she's 34 at the end of this movie in 2011. And I
right.
think when we open up this movie, this takes place in like 2004,
Yeah, oh 03, oh 04, yeah.
0304. So that's 7 years prior. And so she's 25 when this movie opens up. Okay. I believe that.
Yeah. Um
There's some quick math for you folks
I
out
was
there.
really I was really proud of your math.
Thanks.
Um the there's a lot of moments too that are like I remember from the trailer and like Jason Clark yelling like, "When is the last time you saw Bin Laden?" Like over and over again, like kind of like just his voice. I read somewhere that Joel Edgerton was like gonna be in this movie and had to back out, and then he was able to come back in and he got a different part. I imagine that this might have been the part he had originally,
This movie very much made me realize how much Jason Clarke and Joel Edgerton could play brothers in a film.
right? Yeah. I definitely can see that. Although probably I think different nationalities, right? I think Jason Clark's just like American. Maybe not. I don't know. All these like Brits and Aussies, like you don't know. Like Melanie Linsky
Yeah.
did not fucking know she was
British?
Australian. No, I think
Australian?
she's Australian, yeah.
Mm.
Fucking maybe New Zealand though. I'm gonna get in trouble with those two places. So let's move on though. I like when she first meets Kyle Chandler's character, and I love every one of their
Dude,
interactions in this
I
movie.
was so excited when I saw Kyle Chandler was in this. I just knew Jessica Chastain was in it. I even forgot Chris Pratt was in this. So the fact that like Kyle Chandler, Mark Strong, like all these people just fucking show up during.
Jeremy Strong.
Huh?
Jeremy Strong.
Jeremy Strong from Succession?
Yep.
When I saw him, it's funny because 'cause I'm watching Succession, like, today, and so I was just like, he plays such a different character, and has such a little part in this, right? I guess this is before his fame of Succession, but, when he's getting chewed out by Mark Strong, it is such like, he's just sitting there, like, hunched over like a little boy being chewed out, and I'm like, "Oh, this is where they got his character from Succession."
Well, he's also, I mean, around the same time he had his character. For me, like the first time I ever saw him was The Big Short, and I think it was like the same year and like the year before, right? Um,
Oh, he's in The Big Short. I mean, I love The Big Short, I just don't remember him
he's
in
one
it.
of Steve Carell's guys. He's like the numbers guy who like wants to punch
Oh,
Gosling.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, that makes
So,
sense. Okay.
so when she first meets Kyle Chandler and he's like, "So how do you like Pakistan?" She's like, "It's kind of fucked up." And he's like, "You volunteered for this." She's like, "No, I didn't."
Yeah, why so, why did he think that she volunteered for this?
I don't. I guess because they probably don't send a lot of people over there if you don't want to go to Pakistan. They're like, we don't want to send people over there who fucking hate it.
I
Um,
guess not, but then again, it's the government. I feel like you just go where you're sent, you know?
no, no, I agree. But if you're sent to like somewhere that bad, they don't want to. They probably wouldn't want to send people who are like dead set against it. But I guess they know they call her a killer. Like she's probably so committed to the cause. And the director of the CIA says that later too. Like, you have a knack for this, right? So they probably know that they can send her even if she maybe doesn't want to, and she's going to do a great job. Um, we then kind of get her interactions with Jennifer Ely, who plays the character of Jessica, where she's like, "Oh, we saw this diamond pattern in the hill with Osama bin Laden, a tall guy at the head of it," and she's like, yeah, this is, I guess, how you know that she's been doing this for a long time before she got there, right? Because she's like, no, that's pre 9/11 behavior. He doesn't act like that anymore. And then Jason Clark's to me like, yeah, the diamond's bullshit. Like we're not going after that. Like he like implicitly and explicitly just trusts whatever Jessica Chastain says. He's like, fuck, that's what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like she knows I'm not gonna listen to someone else.
Well, it's funny because it's like, on one hand, even all the way up to the very end, they underestimate her. Yeah. So sorry. The end of the movie, they underestimate her then, right? But then some characters in this film just put their complete trust in her. Like like SEAL Team 6 at the end. It's like her confidence is why I'm here, why we're doing this. But then there's a part in the end where someone's on the phone. They have Bin Laden's body. She confirms it. He's on the phone and he says like, "Yeah, the girl. Yeah, the girl." I'm like, "Fucking disrespectful." But I guess that's just like the struggle. Her character is not based on a real person, right? It's like an amalgamation of like many women during in the CIA during that time. So
I mean, it is, but it's also based on a person too. But yeah, I think like all of
it's like a couple people, yeah.
well, because I did, because you told me that, right? And then I was reading a little bit more, and one of the guys, the guy who shot Bin Laden I think in his book, said that talking about the person who Jessica Chastain is supposed to be portraying, at least the main one she's portraying, right? That she was like a badass. Um,
Right, right, right. Alfredo something. But yeah, but it's like Catherine Bigelow also does this really cool thing where it's just kind of shows she never gives her characters like the ultimate satisfaction. Like even at the very end of the movie, it's just this like this, yeah, you got what you wanted, but there's always this like discomfort at the end, you know?
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the end of the movie now.
I'm just saying what she does with the characters, like as an overall thing.
Well,
So
one thing I like overall about what she does with Chastain, I was thinking about this as I was watching it this time, is that it's like it's putting a female character in the front of like one of the kind of the biggest stories of that time, right? Of like capturing and killing Osama bin Laden, and it's making a female the front and face of it, right? Because you
mhm.
could have made the story about Obama and his like decision to go after this, right? Or you could have just made it a purely military movie, but he like to focus it on her. And there's a lot of moments where like with a worse writer or with a worse director where you could have made it like the Avengers women's superhero scene where they all get together and it's like, hear me roar. But like it makes a point about the disrespect she receives, but like it makes it in a very natural way, and it just
Yeah,
lets
she
like
doesn't dwell on it. She swallows it and moves on, right? So that I mean that's what makes her character likable is the fact that she doesn't let it hinder her work.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean that's what I was saying too, and maybe like less colorfully. Yeah. So,
Mm,
the only one thing I want to say about the next torture scene is that it is this guy Amar has directly financed 9/11, and when he is clutching that bottle of juice and stuffing like the falafel in his mouth as fast as he can, I'm just like it kind of reminded me when Saddam Hussein was killed, that video surfaced online and I watched it,
I don't know what you're
and
talking
it's
about.
you don't know who Saddam Hussein is?
I know who's I know who Saddam Hussein is. I don't know what video you're talking about.
He was murdered, he was hung, executed, and the video of it appeared online.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, I watched it. You
Of
didn't need to
course you
chime
did.
in for any of that. And it's you're seeing like a very evil person murdered, and it's still like it's not like can you imagine living I mean, you're French, right? Can you imagine living in the time of the guillotine and just like everyone going up and like let's go fucking watch this? Like it's just like so crazy to me, right? Like you have this purely evil person, but it's still like you're watching like a life extinguish, still like fucking hard to do. It's just interesting.
Especially like the way the guillotine does kill. It's way worse than like a hanging, I guess, you know?
I don't know. I've never
Well,
had either happen
okay,
to me.
so the thing that I have to think about is that people are so desensitized from it from like at probably such an early age back then that it probably doesn't bother them. They do it every weekend or whatever. But we as a society, um, we aren't so desensitized by like that sort of stuff. I mean, it's in the video games and it's in movies, but we all know that's fake, right? And so
Fucking video games, man.
but we all know that's fake. I mean, if we were to see it in real life, I don't think many people in this day and age could stomach it if for not the fact that like I don't know about you, but like one video like a watch of two girls, one cup or blue waffle, I feel like
What the
mil-
fuck are you doing?
like millennials could just like sit through anything at this point.
I don't even know how to deal with you sometimes, honestly. Let's just get back to the movie. What the fuck is going on tonight? Um,
I'm
so then
unhinged.
yeah, I don't know. I should maybe we'll just go back to rom-coms or something. So one of the harder scenes to watch for me was it goes to May 2004 and there's the attack in Saudi Arabia where the guys are just kind of gunning people down. When you were like, "Oh, do you think Taylor could handle this movie?" I had like just watched that part of it and I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't remember if it gets worse than this," which it doesn't really, but like that was a
So
rough scene.
so she liked the movie. She handled the movie really well. She I think if the torture scenes were a little bit more graphic, she would probably have to like walk out during them.
Mhm.
But they were like, I mean, she was getting there. I feel like her tolerance was like getting pretty spent, but it never surpassed it. She stuck through the whole thing.
Yeah. So because of the Saudi Arabia attack, Maya comes up with the idea of bluffing and basically telling Amar, "You gave us this, we stopped it, so now we're just kind of buddy buddy. So just give us more." And they're feeding him, and Jason Clark at one point was like, "I can go eat with someone else," when he seems to be kind of a little deceptive, but um, he gives him the name Abu Ahmed, who's the guy that we're basically looking for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, that's
Um,
crazy. Like the way he gives them the name and then all the investigations that goes after this guy is just like it's the coolest part about the movie, I think.
yeah, I like when we get to Edgar Ramirez, his character, and like the finding the car from then on is kind of my favorite part of the movie.
Oh, with the GPS tracking and stuff?
Yeah, until they like track down the house. So yeah, there's a montage of like her watching a bunch of interviews of like people maybe or maybe not getting tortured or just talked to or whatever, and they all kind of know this guy. She goes to her own black site interview, and like she's talking with Kyle Chandler again after this, and she's like, the fact that everyone knows him and but no one will tell me where he is means he's important. He's like, well, that's what you want it to mean. She's like, of course that's what I fucking want it to mean. And then Jason Clark's like, we don't know what we don't know, and he's like, what the fuck does that mean? And he's like, I don't know. And then I love Kyle Chandler afterwards. Great work. Now, why don't you come back when you get me some actual intelligence?
Oh man, the part of the movie that kind of confused me is his like Kyle Chandler's character being let go because of a drone strike, right? Am I getting this right? And his name somehow got like doxed.
So there was a drone strike. One of the persons who was murdered in the drone strike or died accidentally. I don't know if it was intentional or whatever. Well, obviously it was intentional. They were killing somebody, but if they got the right guy, um, he his family sued, and in they're naming people in the lawsuit, they named Joe Bradley, who is Kyle Chandler's character. And so then because of that, he had to leave just because it became too dangerous, which eventually is what happens to Maya too. Once they like figure out who she is, um they're like, oh, she had to get out of there too. There is this one part where she's like, you can kind of see it. So at first she's like eating out with Jennifer Ely's character, and then later on, this like one girl comes up to her to provide her information, and she's like, "Don't eat out; it's too fucking dangerous." And then at one point, she's like wearing the full. I don't know if it's a burqa or if there's a different name for it because I know there's variations, but she's like wearing a full outfit to disguise herself to blend in.
Right,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? So it's
Yeah.
just like it's this kind of like subtle showing of the progression where she's just like more and more like has to hide.
When she's eating out with Ely, isn't that when the Marriott
Bomb.
explodes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's
Um,
an actual thing that happened, right?
Yeah, I think the Saudi Arabia, the British bus, that like all of those where there's like they break in and show the news, like all of those were real events like
I
that kind of set the
remember
timeline.
I remember the bomb scare in Times Square.
I remember all of these. Yeah,
Oh,
like
well,
very
you're
like to
quite a bit
varying
older than me.
degrees. When when 9/11 happened, I I don't know why I did this and I still have it somewhere. Honestly, it's probably in my parents' attic, so it's probably like getting fucking destroyed. But I bought like basically like a ton of newspapers of like different coverage of the event and magazines afterwards, and it just like became so heavy, and I was just like, I don't even know why I still have this stuff anymore. But like I was basically like, I think
So
as a kid I was like, this is like our Pearl Harbor, our Pearl Harbor. This is like the event of the time, so it's like I want to have like
yeah,
the records of it.
that's so funny. That's so funny that you were old enough to, like, consciously, like, think about that. So you must have been, 13, 14 years
Yes,
old?
13.
Because I was 8 and I was in 3rd grade. So yeah, you were in, like, 8th grade. And so as a 3rd grader, I remember the school's on lockdown, everyone's crying, no one answering any questions, and all the 7 and 8-year-olds being like, "We have no idea what the fuck is going on." They're, like, throwing us, like, coloring books and, like, all the stuff that they're not allowed to give us, like, after recess or whatever, and we're like, "Well, something's up." And I remember my mom, they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, no one can pick up their children from school, it's on lockdown." My mom jumps over the gate of the school, grabs me, and then we jump back over the gate together to get in the car to go home.
So I was in second period in ninth grade, and one of my teachers came in and told the other teacher that the trade center just got hit by a plane, and she had a daughter that worked there, or daughter or son-in-law, I can't, or son, can't remember. And she immediately like freaked out and just left. She's like, I'm out. Um, and
Sure.
then we watched, I think we put on the TV then. Then we went to third period, and our geometry teacher was like, no, we're going to learn. And everyone's like, what? And like no one paid attention the entire class, and he just kept trying to teach us. I was like, you like, I get what you're trying to do in retrospect now, right? Like keep things normal, but it's like no one wanted that. And I so from 4th period on, and my brother in the hallway at one point was like, "I'm gonna try and get call mom to see if she can tell them to let us go home." But our school, they didn't go on lockdown, but they said you couldn't leave unless a parent came and got you. Even if my brother who drove, and we lived like 45 minutes away from the school, so my mom was like, "Nah, you just stay there." Um, and we lived in Jacksonville, Florida. Like we were not a hotbed for an attack. Um,
Right.
so like we could not leave. But from 4th period on, we just watched the news, and I remember watching it, and like one of the my friends was like, "Oh, it's like a 747." I was like, it wasn't that fucking big of a plane because at that point you didn't know, right? And you just like thought it might have been an accident, and then you're watching throughout the day as like the towers come down, and I remember watched every period, drove home, went into my room, turned on the TV, and watched it until bedtime.
Yeah,
And
I
then
remember for days, my parents were, like, glued to the family TV for, like, days.
I can't even remember what day of the week it was. I wonder if we went to school the next day. I
Oh,
think
definitely not.
I
No
think it was
way.
a Tuesday, right? Yeah, well, let's get back to it. Um, but the next scene is you have a guy who's kind of being strapped with what you think are explosives, right? And maybe they were. And you think we're going to see like another bombing, and then he kind of goes out into this courtyard area, and you see a bunch of people with like full coverings and guns. And then you see this guy come up, and we later learn that this is Faraj, which is like the guy that Abu Ahmed goes between Faraj and Osama bin Laden. And this guy kind of gets him to come to this area where we then, the United States, the CIA grab him and then start torturing him. And this is where you get the scene with Clark and the monkeys. And he tells Maya, he's like, "You don't want to be the last one with the dog collar, when the Senate starts investigating this." Um, and then he also says like everyone knows you in Pakistan, which is funny. That's a thing that doesn't pay off until way later when we get like an assassination attempt, which seems like it's probably like 6 years later, right? At that point.
Yeah, I guess, and then even then, it's like, well, was it because it's her, or was it just because she's an American? And the movie still doesn't never answers that, you know?
I think it's because people started realizing that where she worked. And then it goes to the girls' night at the hotel, which the movie says September 2008, and that's like a girls' night out, and there's an explosion. But before that, kind of the same logic Maya has before. She's like, and I said this earlier, but Faraj only lied about two things: the Osama bin Laden's location and how important this courier was. And it's like the same reason like all the other people wouldn't tell the location. They're withholding it. Um, right after this, the movie starts doing this thing, which I don't even know if it did from the point before, but it starts giving these kind of titles to the movie, right?
It did all the way through.
But in the beginning, they were like a little bit different. It would be kind of like dates. And then this one, it's like the meeting and then human error and then tradecraft. Like it felt like slightly different towards the end, or at least more noticeable to me.
It was going faster, it was becoming more frequent until the very end where the whole assassination thing was like one title card, and then it was the last 45 minutes of the movie without
Yeah, it was
one.
like canaries.
Yeah, that was it. And then it was like and then that was it. There was no other title card after that.
So the next part is with Jennifer Ely's character, where she thinks she's going to meet this doctor, and she convinces Kyle Chandler's character to let her do it, and they trying to figure out a place to meet him because he doesn't want to travel, and which we find out is because he wants to fucking kill people.
Right.
So they just decide to meet at a base in Afghanistan, and as you were talking about, like she, before we started this, how like she makes them kind of like break down the protocol, like don't search the guy out there, and the guy's response of like, procedures only work if we follow them. That scene is like so tough because you can see it coming, how like sloppy she's being, right?
Yeah. Yep. And she's putting not just her life in danger, which is like, okay, whatever, but she's putting all those other people's lives in danger. And I don't know if you noticed, but do you remember the blonde chick in that scene?
Yeah.
She bolts for it. Do you
That so
see
I didn't
that?
I see that. I've noticed every time. I thought it was very interesting how she like realizes she's like, "Oh fuck, this is fucked." I don't know if it was the blonde chick or a different one based on where they were standing, but yeah, I did notice that woman running. It was like kind of I wanted to bring it up too. Like it was like kind of the most noticeable part of that. Like the decision to have that in there is interesting.
Yeah, but there's no way she cleared that, right, in that time?
She might have cleared it enough to where she kind of got fucked up but lived.
I don't
But
know,
who
because by the time she bolted, all the guys already drew their guns on them, and they were like, "Is he supposed to be limping? What's with the cane? Blah 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 blah," stuff like that. And then you see her bolt, and then it cuts back to him blowing up, and it's like a 30-foot crater or something like that. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the movie doesn't say if the news organization isn't like, and the woman who ran away didn't make it. Um, After this, Jeremy Strong comes in to console her, which, like, knowing the character he's kind of known for now is like hilarious. That he's like, "I'm so sorry about your friend's loss. Oh, and hey, I didn't mean to make your day worse, but also Abu's dead too, so it really sucks." And she's just like, I after this, I her line. I think, her friend Jack comes to talk to her, and she's like, "I'm gonna smoke everyone involved in this op, and then I'm gonna go kill
Mhm.
Osama bin Laden." And it's just like, the Jennifer Ely character died because of her kind of singular focus, and, like, the rest of the movie is, like, Maya's singular focus on this one
Right.
goal. It's, like, the only thing she cares about. It's the only um, and then right after this, we get Mark Strong, who comes in so fucking hot.
So fucking pissed.
Yeah. Hitting
Yelling at
tables.
everyone. Oh my god.
He looks so odd with that hairpiece that he's got going on there. Just
Alright, good.
just
Yeah.
let him be bald Mark
He
Strong.
comes in, and Taylor goes, "I didn't know Stanley Tucci was in this."
That's fucked up. I don't even think she did it on purpose.
Maybe not. I don't know. With hair, who knows what he looks like.
My favorite line of everything he says is, I want targets, so do your fucking job and bring me people to kill."
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, and everyone's there, dude. Like Jeremy Strong, Kyle Chandler, everyone's fucking there. I'm
And
just getting chewed out.
in the movie, we had just learned that Abu Ahmed was dead, what, maybe like a film time 5 minutes ago, and then in the next scene, there's this hot girl named Debbie who we've never seen before, who just comes in and she's like, "Oh, I found this folder." And it, like, unlocks this thought in Maya's head of like, "Oh, hey, maybe it was the brother who died." And then she kind of calls.
What a leap. Like what a leap in believing that,
Well, I mean,
right?
she lays it out for Jason Clark later, where she's like, "We've been showing the wrong photo. All these people who said that they, buried Abu Ahmed. What if they buried the brother for the picture we've been showing?" And Jason Clark's like, "You want this to be true?" And she's like, "Yes, I fucking want this to be true." And this next part is really, like, interesting to me. Um, the fact that Jason Clark, like, he has to go to this guy named the Wolf, who is like a Muslim, a Muslim working in the CIA. Which I read a little thing on that it's based on, like, a real person who his code name was like Roger, maybe, and talking about how he converted to Islam, like, later in life, and he works for the CIA and this kind of in this role that is depicted in this movie. And
I think
Jason
his I think a character that is portrayed by him, or like based on the same guy, is a character in the show Homeland.
Probably. I mean, that would obviously make sense.
Yeah.
Um, but Jason Clark's like, "Oh, I need a couple $100,000 to get a phone number," and he's like, "It's for your girl Maya. You're the one who set her out there. You got basically, like, you put her in the kitchen. You got to let her cook." And the wolf is like, "Well, the Senate start asking questions. Basically, like, I'll give you the money if you take the fall." And Jason Clark is like, "I ran the program. I'll answer the questions." And which is just it's interesting because the movie doesn't show him ever getting any heat for that. Like, he's wearing a suit later on. He's in all the meetings with the director of the CIA, so he's like, he's fine. But the
Right.
fact that he believed in Maya enough to be like, he probably figured it was going to come down on him anyway because he ran the program. Like,
Sure.
but just the fact that he was willing to do that, and then he goes to Kuwait, finds a guy who needs a Lambo, and gets a cell phone number. and from here on is like my favorite part of the movie. This last like half probably.
No, I agree with you. Like the whole tracking him down, but also like up to that point too, where she's trying to figure out which brother is which, and maybe she can track him that way. Which part did you like better? Did you like when they were visiting the call centers or tracking them via car?
I like the vehicle and then her planting all the people alongside the road. Oh, and one line from when Jason Clark is getting the Lambo for the guy, and the guy's like, "But there will be no repercussions in this in Kuwait." And Jason Clark's like, "Someone may die in Pakistan, though."
Right, right. Yeah, of course. But that guy didn't care. He now has a speed yellow Lambo.
Yep. And we finally get to meet Edgar Ramirez, who was in the meeting with Mark Strong, but like this is when he gets to talk, and he's basically like, I don't have, the resources to do what you want. Cause she's like, I need you to go follow this guy on a cell phone. And at first she's basically like, I don't fucking care. And then she tries to talk to him and basically like, listen, all my friend, a lot of my friends have died over this. I need to get this guy. And then I love when she goes to Kyle Chandler again right after this and just fucking yells at him. And
Oh my god.
an underrated part of that is I didn't I guess I realized it before, but he immediately walks into a meeting where he's like the boss of everybody and he just got chewed out by this woman. And she's
Well,
like,
not only that, but the door was open,
I
so
know.
obviously
Yeah, they
they
heard
all
all
heard
of
it. They heard
it.
all of it. Yeah, yeah.
You're gonna get called in front of a Senate committee for subverting the efforts to capture and kill bin Laden. And she's like, either fucking give me what I want or send me home. Uh,
That was probably like the biggest, I don't know. I That was the big scene for Jessica Chastain in this movie, I feel
yeah.
like. And I know acting is mostly reacting, right? That old adage, but her performance in this scene is so compelling, and it just like it really makes you root for her. I know that's kind of weird, but like her and you were saying this before, like Ely was so focused and that's what got her killed. But then Maya's focus is she has no repercussions from that.
Well, I mean, she just as easily could have been killed if she had gone with, Jennifer Ely's character, right? She
I
just happened to,
guess.
yeah. I mean, obviously,
Except you could argue that if she was there, she would talk Ely from not breaking protocol.
she would have ran more quickly. I'm gonna stand back here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they start tracking Abu Ahmed. The dude's on the bike with the guns. I like the guy who goes to try and talk to them, and then he comes back and tells Edgar Ramirez, he's like, if they don't move, fucking shoot them. He's like, I don't want to deal with these guys. And then they ride off. Um, and they just keep finding him. And I love, like, they're searching for him. I love the part where they're driving around and they're like, oh, he's in a fucking car driving in circles. And they just kind of pull over and like have the guy drive past them. And then there's this part right after this where Edgar Ramirez gives Jessica Chastain the photos, and she's like, "I found your guy, geotagged," and he's like, everyone in the world is gonna want a part of this now, so you got to keep to your guns. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, she's just like low man on the totem pole who's doing this, but she like doesn't get to make decisions, right? I mean, I guess stick to your guns in that, like, tell them like, hey, I fucking know what I'm talking about, we have to do this, like we have to go after them, but like it's not like she's making decisions, she's making like recommendations.
Sure. Sure. No, yeah. When the head of the CIA comes in and it's Tony Soprano, in
Yeah.
what must have been one of his last roles, right?
I think that the last role from what I remember was the Julia Louis Dreyfus like romantic comedy he did, where it's like him and her are the main characters, which I
Oh,
heard is supposed to be good.
I don't
But
know.
yeah, I mean, I think this was one of definitely one of his later ones, which is not me going out on a limb or anything. So Um, I love the next scene where Maya goes to the new director and he's on the phone, and then she's like, I need this, I need this. And he's like, yeah, no, I understand. She's like, oh, so you agree with me? He's like, No, I just have learned that, like, it's better when I don't argue with you. She's like,
Oh, yeah, my predecessors have taught me that it's better when I don't argue with you, because he's a new face. I think this is the first time we see him, right?
yeah, and I love her reaction of just like, "Okay, whatever, I'll take it." Like, you know what I mean? She's like, "Oh, okay. I guess, yeah, that works too."
Yeah, because he has his feet up on the table and he's kinda treating her disrespectfully, but then on the other hand, just giving her what she wants. She's just like, "Pick your fights, I'll take the small win for what it is."
Yeah. Um, and then there's the assassination attempt, and she has to head back home. But like through all of this, they're still kind of tracking this car, and then they find his compound. And the rest of this is basically just trying to convince everyone of what they know. And then you have Mark Duplass show up. There's like a guy that works at the CIA, and he's like mostly a funny guy, right? And I guess this role is like supposed to be a little levity in this.
Which character are you talking about?
So he's the guy who he like when she first gets back, to Langley, and he's like, she's like, "Oh, so let me just see what we have. We have this house that we can't see in, and you're just telling me Osama bin Laden's there." And then they go into the meeting with the CIA director, and he tells her to sit in the back. And the CIA director starts asking questions, and then she answers, and he goes, "Who are you?" And she's like, "I'm the motherfucker that found this place." And then
Right, yeah.
after everyone walks out, Mark Duplass goes, "Motherfucker, okay." Like that guy.
Oh, yeah, 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 him.
He's in a ton of shit.
Um,
And he directs. He's in
yep,
the league. He's in
yeah,
Creep, Creep
yep.
2. Yeah, so anyway, this movie has so many fucking people and so many small parts. And it's just like it's kind of amazing, like all the people that want to be in this. Like before they were really huge, right? Like Chris Pratt was not as big as he is now back then. So to get him in this small part, which he's like kind of perfect for,
No, he
Joel
is
Edger.
kinda perfect. And I heard that James Gunn saw him in this part and was like, "Star-Lord."
He was so what's funny is he's like leaned up so much from this. He was like so fucking beefy for this part. Like, you know what I mean? Like strong looking, but also kind of a little like bloated looking in this part. And then you see him like as Star Lord, and he's like fucking cut and jacked.
Yep, yep.
So she's trying to convince the CI director, and he's like, "I need more." And so then they find that there's like an extra woman in there, which I want to bring up later because the counting's odd on. But they find a third woman, which means there has to be a third man. And so they, I like when Mark Strong's talking to this guy who's like a liaison to the president, and he's like, "Should I just give up any hopes of seeing a photo?" He's like, "Yes." He's like, and also like we could try and get their trash, but they burn the trash. We could try and get their feces, but they're not going to let us do that. Um, they don't. And he's like, "Well, can you catch them on a phone call?" And he's like, "They don't make phone calls from this." Like, and I love the other guys are like, "Yeah, we think it's like a 60% chance it could be like an Al Qaeda person, but it could also be a drug dealer or a gun runner." And then like in the next meeting, he's like, "This would be the first successful drug runner who doesn't sell drugs. So
Yeah, who
like it
does he
can't be
sell the
that."
drugs to? Is it someone in the house? Like exactly. The part that, like, leading up to meeting Chris Pratt and Joel Edgerton, going from there, where they're going around the room with Tony Soprano, and they're giving each other their percentages, the
Yeah,
percentages of this, and how everyone is scared to go, like, above 60%, and then one guy who was like 80%. And then I thought I thought Jessica Chastain was like, "Yeah, 80%." But no, dude, she was like 100%. Okay, 95 because you guys are so fucking scared of
certainty.
certainty, but it's 100%.
I love afterwards the CIA director's like, "What do you think of her?" And she's like, "She's fucking smart." And he's like, "We're all fucking smart, Jeremy."
Yeah.
He's so great in this part. Um, James Gandolfini. He's not just Tony Soprano. The one part after like the Mark Strong meeting where he's like, the guy's like, Mark Strong's like, I want to say, and he's like, don't give me this shit. I was there when you were talking about WMDs in Iraq. And he's like, no, I agree with all that. He's like, but what I want to say is like, what's the calculus on not killing this guy and letting him go? And then he's like, give us options. And the scene where Maya explains to the SEAL Team 6 guys, like, what this is, and, like, Chris Pratt's reaction is just like, "Huh?" And then right after that, he's like, I've been on this mission before and we lost some guys." And she's like, "I don't even fucking wanna use you guys. I'm gonna drop a bomb." But they don't think the intelligence is strong enough to drop a bomb, so they're fucking throwing you guys in there. She's like, is like, oh,
How
so great.
ruthless is that though? Dude, she knows there's kids that live on the compound and she just wanted to fucking nuke it.
Yeah, I
Is
mean,
it one of those things where it's like, if you let the kids live, they'll look for
no, I think
revenge,
she
and if
just
you look
she
for
just wanna make
revenge
I think she just wanted to make sure that he died. I also wanna say, without being too lecherous, that from this point on to the end of the movie, I think Jessica Chastain looks her hottest in this movie and maybe ever. So, um,
Jeez, wow.
I also love
Just like
when
I'm sorry, just at that point on? So you're saying, like, when she's standing on the helicopter fields and, like, the wind is blowing her hair everywhere, that's the part?
when she got the black glasses on too, and she's got, like, it's parted behind her ear on one side and then over, yeah.
Oh,
But then
Jesus Christ.
also when she's first explaining, like, the op to the SEAL Team 6 guys too, yeah. Um, so the next part where she is hanging out with the guys and they're fucking playing horseshoes and fucking I what what leads you to believe that he's there? And he's like, her confidence. He's like, if her confidence is all that's keeping me from getting ass raped in a Pakistan prison, he's like, I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and then she gets the call, and Mark Strong's like, that thing we talked about, it's gonna happen. Like,
Oh, we didn't mention that, like, every time she gave like, from the day she gave the intelligence of the house, she's marking the days on his, door, on his glass door,
yeah,
and it gets to, like,
121
something
days, 121 days since we found this place. What the fuck's happening?
yeah, yeah.
She wanted to bomb it from day two. She's like, we've had 2 days. Let's like get this done.
Dude, that'd be insane. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the CIA timeline seems pretty normal to me. Just make sure he doesn't leave. Um, and then there's like 40 minutes left in the movie when this raid kind of starts, and
Well,
s-
maybe if they didn't crash the fucking helicopter in the beginning of this, it could have gone a lot quicker.
yeah. And here's where I want to tell my story. So I'm in a theater with a bunch of friends. My friend's dad came too. He used to come to the movies with a lot. He was a cool guy, big tear, and
That's his name?
we it's Terry. Call him Big Tear, Big T. Shout out Big T. So we're sitting there. We get to this point in the movie. The helicopter flies in, crashes. The guys start breaking into the compound, breaking down doors, shooting people. And this fat lady, who you could clearly hear was missing some teeth and a high school education,
Jesus Christ, just
just
dig into her.
starts saying over and over, "They're gonna get you, Osama. They're gonna get you, Osama." Like, she said it like 30 times.
What did Big T do? Did Big T smack her down?
No, he was like, "That bitch." But if someone had come in and just shot her right then and there, I would have been like, I would just like, just keep the movie going. I've never viscerally hated someone more. Like, she kind of ruined the ending of the movie for me. And like,
What,
I've
you didn't
watched
know? You didn't know how it was gonna end?
No, but, like, it's a very intense scene, like, to have someone just, like, provide a fucking I didn't ask for her commentary track to be added to the end of this movie, and it was.
You know, I'm
I
wondering.
hope she's dead.
um, I'm just imagining, like, for the split second that you don't realize this is coming from an audience member. This is like actual
It's just
audio.
Jessica Chastain over the phone. She's like, "I'm using an accent for this part." No, yeah. It's fucking horrible. It's,
Yeah.
like, one of the worst like, audiences, like, I've had to deal with in a movie ever.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. That does suck. But let me ask you something. Wha Did they actually, like, was that there for movie purposes, or did they actually fucking crash that Black Hawk?
No, no, they did. I think there's obviously a lot of like how true was the beginning of this movie, and obviously Maya is an amalgamation of other characters, like we said, all that. But I think the raid part is pretty detail accurate.
So from what I heard is they actually built the compound in Jordan, and they used a production designer who's never worked on a movie, on a feature movie before. But what he did is he basically built the compound from scratch, um, based off of blueprints and plans from, like, reports.
Okay.
But this is cool. The concrete blocks that he used to, like, build the wall, they were brand new concrete blocks. He had them distressed, every single one of them, to make it look like it's been there for a while.
I mean, the compound looks really fucking legit. Like it all looks really, really good. I mean, as they're doing this too, you have like all the villagers, the lights are turning on, right? And as these villagers are kind of coming, you have the one guy, Hakeem, who's like trying to talk to them. And at the one point, he's like, just starts speaking English. He's like, they're gonna fucking kill you. Go away, like go back. They will shoot you. Um, yeah, and what I also found interesting too, right before we get up to the Osama bin Laden part of it is um, they'd shoot a guy, right? He'd obviously be dead, and then they would make sure of it, right? Like, so this mission
Right.
was to kill. They were not taking any prisoners. Um, and then they kind of so at one point they're going up these stairs and they go, Khalid, and the guy peers around and gets shot in the head. And I also was like, they've already killed two guys. That's a third guy. Was that like an
Yeah.
old son? I feel like that
So
has to be like an 18, 19-year-old son or something for that to make sense.
yeah, I agree with you because you have the first guy who's shooting through the door, and I think that is the one that has to be the son, right? And
No, no, that was Abu Ahmed, I think.
well, then you have the girl like saying you shot him in perfect English, by the way.
Right, right.
But she's like, "Hey, you shot him," and she's taken prisoner. But that has to be an older daughter. That can't be one of the women
Well, I
because
don't. They just ended up shooting like three guys that look like men before they got to Osama. Three like old, like two of them were obviously full adults, and one of them was like late teens, early 20s guy. So
right,
that
I know
was
I agree with you because then they were like, "There's three guys and three men and three women," but then they get to like they shoot the man and the woman guarding the other house, right?
right.
And then there's another 2 women with the children. So that's 4 women, unless you wanna count one of those women as being just an older daughter.
Well, as they say, like until they find a husband, they live with the family. And also, I imagine being in that situation, it might be kind of hard to find a husband. I guess you're like kind of set up with someone
I
um,
guess,
because you
but
can't
didn't
really leave that compound all too easily.
so my understanding for the Bin Ladens is, like, the Bin Ladens are, like, like, a pretty rich family over there, right? Like, they're a real wealthy, well-known family. It's like the Kennedys here. So it's like, can you imagine just like one of the Kennedy sons defecting and just like going to blow up, like inciting violence on like, I don't know, Italy? And then like the Italians sitting there, like best of the best to the US to go like assassinate Robert Kennedy Jr. the third. Like that's kind of crazy to think about.
I mean, the way you described it, yeah. Yeah, we're sending a guy to attack Italy. Um, so what I like, so they kill Osama, and the guy who did it, he shoots him, and then just looks down, and like for the rest of the movie, it's just has a shocked face of like, what the fuck did I just do? Like your life has changed, right? Like there's before
Like
you
you're,
killed
yeah,
Osama, and then there's after.
yeah.
Um, and he walks down. He walks downstairs and Chris Pratt's like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "I think I killed the third floor guy." He's like, "Okay, cool. Can you help us grab some stuff?" Like, it's like awesome. And there's like several moments at the end of this where I get kind of choked up. But when they say Geronimo and they show Jessica Chastain's face,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
just like she's like because she's had this like air of confidence about her this whole time, but to realize she was actually right and like all of this work, the friend she's lost has not been for naught, has meant something. Um, it
So
all hits then.
yeah. No, it's great. And I actually like two things about this. One, I really, really like the decision not to show Osama bin Laden's face in full.
And well, yeah, but especially to show like the through the camera as they're taking photos was like really kind of a genius. Like the guy's taking a photo over him and you just kind of see the body through that. So it's like sort of vague, but like we all know what he looks like.
Yeah, but they didn't get like an actor to portray him, and then that
Right.
actor is like typecast as like you know what I mean? So
Yes.
like they didn't make it a point to show who played Osama bin Laden. Now, here's a story. Is that right before the raid happened, um, Taylor and I took a break. I had to go do a video call, but the so we stopped right there, and as we're coming back to it, as we're starting the movie, at that point, I go, wouldn't it be funny if this whole movie is like super serious, right? Like dramatic, serious thriller spy movie. But then they get into the thing, they get into the compound, they find Osama bin Laden, and he's played by like Sacha Baron Cohen or something.
Welcome to my compound. Is that
Or
what
like
you
or like Fred Armiston, or like it's just someone from like the SNL cast just playing Osama bin Laden.
you come into my compound? Straight to jail. It feels like you're setting up for like impressions that I'm not very good at, so I don't know. But yeah. I
No.
mean, yeah, I don't think that's the direction the movie wanted to go in. I don't know.
No, but like just for the fact that I'm sitting there thinking like, "Oh, I wonder who plays Osama bin Laden," and then for them just to never show us,
It's Jake Gyllenhaal
it's Jake Gyllenhaal.
in his most challenging role since Bubble Boy. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you can't have like a guy. Honestly, even if I was the guy who was like wearing this, I'd be like, don't credit me. Just pay me and like don't I
Yeah.
don't want that on my resume. Um I love the ending too when she gets on the plane and the guy's like, "Oh, you're the only one on here. You must be important." And like always, the focusing on like the person's face as it ends, like this has been our protagonist throughout, and like the tear, great crying from Chastain at the end of this. Yeah, it's just kind of a great way to end the movie, and it's just like all the emotions hitting her of like this is all I've been doing. It's like what it's my entire life is now been this, and that part of it's over.
Do you have any fun facts about this film?
Like I have alternate castings,
Ooh,
which
okay.
can be fun facts.
It is. It is. I have a couple of fun facts. Also,
So yeah, Maya was originally supposed to be Rooney Mara. She had to drop out. Um, this movie has so many people in it, right? So, but some other people that were in it. Tom Hardy was going to have the Mark Strong role at some point, and then Idris Elba and Guy Pearce were considered for different roles. And that's pretty much it. Jessica Chastain, I read somewhere that like her management team turned this down, and then Catherine Bigelow called her personally. It was like, "You need to do this part," and she's like, "Okay, fuck yeah, I'll do it." Um, and then she got like a voicemail from Catherine Bigelow when it was like confirmed, and she's like saved it ever since. This is like,
and
it's
the
kind of
only
it's
thing the voicemail said was Geronimo.
and this is like kind of a defining like role for her, right? Like it's one of my favorite movies she's been in, like one of my favorite roles of hers, and just so I wouldn't, obviously other actresses could have handled it, but I wouldn't have wanted anybody else for this. I think she's perfect in it.
No, she's great. I mean, in a world where someone else was cast in this, we would never know what we were missing from Jessica Chastain.
You can say that about
Um,
every time we talk about alternate casting.
the world will never know. One thing I found interesting about like the production of this, so they shot what was supposed to be, in Pakistan in India, and a lot of the uh, local members of like the city where they were shooting in India were protesting. Um, like they were so anti Bin Laden and anti Pakistan that they um, protested that Pakistani locations were being portrayed on Indian soil. And then something similar happened in Poland, where they shot one scene in Poland, um, and that city was offended for depicting it as a location for the CIA's clandestine and dark ops. And so like all these people were like just really offended that they like their country was being like portrayed in this way, even though in the movie it's not like we don't understand it to be those countries. We understand it to be Pakistan or Afghanistan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, protesting because they're using your country for a different country for a movie is stupid. So
You said it, man. Another great thing about this movie is that this was actually in production before Osama bin Laden was killed, right?
yeah, they had to
And
rewrite it.
it was going to be a whole different sort of movie, and they just like apparently when they were about ready to shoot, they got word that Osama bin Laden was killed, and so Catherine Bigelow was basically like, "Okay, we got to start all over, and we got to rewrite it so that the ending is this." But then a lot of her like CIA connections really helped out making this movie what it was.
Do you think they got a call from The Rock, and so then they're like, "Shit, we got to change our movie"?
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
The Rock is like one of the people that broke the news that Osama bin Laden had been killed.
What?
You know, he tweeted, he's like, "I just got word that they're about to make an announcement that's going to rock the world." I mean, I don't think he said "rock the world" because he didn't do some stupid pun. But anyway, he's basically like, "It's going to shock everybody." And then like the president, like 30 minutes later or whatever, announced that Osama bin Laden had been killed. He was like somehow found out before everyone else.
Can you smell what the
Uh,
CIA is cooking?
dun, dun, dun. Yeah. So, um, we did this movie because I've wanted to do Hurt Locker as one of my favorite movies, and actually, like, thinking about it, I think Catherine Bigelow has done probably 2 of, like, you know, favorite, like, not top 10, but 2 of my favorite movies ever, and definitely 2 of my favorite war movies in, Hurt Locker and then Zero Dark 30. Although Zero Dark 30 maybe more of a spy
You
thriller.
sure? You sure Point Break isn't up there? Hmm?
As a war movie? Was
Yeah,
it the war against bank robbery?
it's the internal war within oneself.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Um This is just a fucking awesome movie. Controversies aside, it's just so well done. It's so engaging. Jessica Chastain is so amazing in it. Jason Clark. There's like 50 other people whose names I could mention. It's just great.
I agree. I agree. I'm glad you had me watch this. There's a few movies that I watched for the first time through this podcast that I like enjoy recommending and showing to people. Um, I you, Heat is one of those movies that I love showing people now. Like I'm telling people just randomly, like, go watch Heat. LA Confidential is one of those other ones that I'm just like, go watch LA Confidential. What are you doing with your life? Chef with John Favreau is also one of the ones that I tell people to go fucking watch. Um, but now
Geronimo.
I think this one is now too, right? Like this is a great movie. I almost compare it to kind of like Sicario with like strong female leads just kicking ass, but w- watching it, I feel like it's almost I was, I was gonna say better than Sicario, but that's not true. Hold on, let me think what I was gonna say. I'll cut
It
this
is
part.
it is better than Sicario.
Oh wow, wow. Um,
Get good, Denis. No, I love Sicario too.
well then maybe I don't have to change anything. Maybe we'll just leave it at that.
Well, thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and I finally watched Zero Dark 30.